We got Tom in, is it Oregon?
Yeah, Myrtle Point, Oregon. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Thanks for waiting.
I got to say, I've been watching. It's the first time I've watched it. You guys have the patience of Job.
Yeah, we get screwed over just about as much as Job.
Well,
no, I'm kidding.
Well,
nobody's been screwed over as much as Job, and that's involved in our show anyway.
Well, you guys are pretty intimidating, too. I don't know if I can offer any challenge at all, but I do have some questions about natural selection.
Okay, so here's one thing. None of us are biologists.
Well, same here.
And also...
It may not be so much on the biological level. I'm just wondering, I think, and I don't know if I'm quoting you or not, but natural selection is a... unavoidable component of the mechanicism in evolution. Is that right?
Yeah, the Darwinian model is evolution by means of natural selection. But all that natural selection means is that, hey, you live in a world that is dynamic and has certain characteristics.
It's going to favor some individuals and not favor others based on...
Hey, if you blend in really well with your background, you're more likely to survive long enough to have offspring, and those offspring are going to have those traits. Whereas if you don't blend in so well with the background, you're more likely to be killed before you get to have offspring. And so over a long period of time, changes are driven by natural selection. And by the way, the world we live in is dynamic. So what was favored or not selected against 3 million years ago, 2 million years ago, is different from what might be favored or selected against now. That's it. That's all natural selection is.
Okay. I guess this is where my question is, and I've done a little bit of this on some Facebook debate pages, and I just get called an idiot a lot, so this might be really stupid, but what is the source of natural selection? Does it have a source?
The physical facts about reality are natural selection. I'm not quite sure what you mean by source.
The environment in which these individuals find themselves.
So natural selection
it seems like that's more of the effect of natural selection, and I'm just wondering if it has a gene source or a DNA source.
The effect is whether or not the individual reproduces or not. The cause is, what sort of environmental factors, whether. Yeah, the weather,
hey, this animal had, grew more fur and survived better in a colder climate, and another one didn't. That is a part of natural selection. Hey, this animal had features that allowed it to survive when another one didn't. It's not, natural selection is not like this hovering entity source to say, oh, you live and you die. It's just descriptive. It's not prescriptive. It is descriptive of what happens. That there's nobody picking and choosing which communities, which populations live and die, but that this is a result of what happened in the natural world. Weather changed, communities were isolated, and therefore that caused inbreeding or changes in this. There's no, the source is nature, but it's not like evolution has a goal.
Conscious, right?
That's kind of where I'm going here.
Okay.
It seems like I read, like in Dawkins's book, The God Delusion, that natural selection has attributes of a mind, like it makes decisions.
No.
It's elegant, those kind of things.
Elegant is not an attribute of a mind.
These are metaphors, all kinds of things. And don't read too much into them.
Yeah, so this idea that you could look at almost anything as having the attributes of a mind. In a dynamic world where things are interacting, you could look at it as if decisions are being made, but that's not what's happening, and that's certainly not what Dawkins is happening. And by the way, if you want to understand natural selection, don't read The God Delusion. Read one of the 17 other books that Richard's written about evolutionary biology. From The Selfish Gene, The Extended Phenotype. It's probably not 17 books. Read Jerry Coyne's Why Evolution is True,
mm-hmm.
and these other things, because scientists, when they're we're not always good at describing and communicating science to the general public who may not understand it, and so occasionally we will talk about things. Not we, because I'm not a scientist, but scientists will talk about things in a metaphoric sense to try to make it digestible. When you talk about DNA, for example, there are plenty of scientists who will say DNA is like the code or the book of life. Well, it's not actually a book, and it's not a code in the sense that it was communicated by a mind. What it is information that follows the laws of physics and chemical interactions that allow reproduction of deoxyribonucleic acid. But intelligence...
I guess what I'm wondering, if you forgive me for butting in here,
sure.
It just seems like that there should be, according to evolutionary natural selection, that there should be a material source for
the material source are the physical facts about reality, the laws of nature. You know, this thing with
I would say, what is that source? And the reason
I just
why
told you. I just told you, Tom.
Well, let me.
The physical world is the source.
Well, the reason why I think of...
One second. The reason why we call it natural selection is not to focus on the selection, but to focus on the natural. Because it could be the case that there's nothing that determines whether or not a particular genetic code is passed on. Maybe it's just arbitrary. This one lives, this one dies. The model of evolution by means of natural selection is saying, no, it's not arbitrary. It's not that this group lived for no particular reason or this group died for no particular reason. It's this one was more suited to the environment that it found itself in at that time. That's all we're saying, is that the facts about nature, which could be temperature, other living beings, predatory nature, isolation, anything, those facts are what determined which ones were more likely to live and which ones were more likely to die. That's it.
Okay, well, I guess my questions go. I kind of get more questions. I know you're about into the show, and I appreciate you having me on. It seems like, in light of all that, and making natural selection makes those adjustments, artificial selection is selection by design, right?
Yeah, that's how we got all the different dog breeds from wolves.
Yeah, and different plants and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
It just seems like it's just a little far to say that natural selection doesn't have that same kind of mind.
No. The thing is,
that's the point.
Artificial selection demonstrably has a mind that is making selections. Right. Natural selection does not demonstrably have a mind. Now, you could argue that what we're calling natural selection is in fact a mind, but you would need to demonstrate that. That's what the intelligent design community has consistently tried and failed to do. But just because one type of selection is based on a mind and another one does not appear to be based on a mind, doesn't mean that you're justified in claiming that it looks like it might be a mind, so we're going to call it that.
Well, I'll work on enhancing the argument a little bit more. I sure appreciate you letting me air my concerns on this and refining them a little bit. I'm interested in immaterial things and trying to...
How do you know there are any immaterial things?
What's that?
Well, okay, we could talk about abstract concepts.
Well, I got one for you if you got a minute.
Well, we're already over time, so sure, I got a minute.
Okay, I've tried this one online too. It's and you probably heard it before. I think you've heard about every argument. I've watched you a little bit on YouTube.
We've heard a lot of them.
Yeah, you have. I appreciate you taking extra time. Are there laws of science?
Are there laws of science? You'd have to...
Yeah, laws of physics.
So one of the things is that when we talk about laws, we have to define what we're talking about, because laws tend to be viewed as prescriptive, even though some of them are descriptive. So like the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit was a prescriptive law, basically saying thou shalt not go over 45, so we're going to call it a law in the sense of man's law. The laws of nature that we tend to label that way are not prescriptive in the sense that somebody said the speed of light in a vacuum has to be this. Instead, we're describing that this is the case and it appears to be immutable or locally immutable.
It's a way to summarize facts is really what it's about.
Okay, well, I guess that's why I'm interested that the laws of gravity and centrifugal force, the laws that were necessary for creation, for example, they actually existed prior to man. Man didn't discover them, right?
Man did discover them. Man didn't invent them, is what you mean.
Okay, but they did exist before man
So far as we can tell, I mean, we don't have a time machine.
You know, the laws, as we understand them, are models and concepts, right? Matter has behavior and properties based on the physics of and the chemistry, right? So that stuff all existed long before us. My
question is it Dan?
Don.
Don, I'm sorry. My question is since gravity existed and maybe the laws associated with it prior to man, and let's just say at the point of the Big Bang, for example, why is it such a far-fetched idea among atheists to think that those laws had to exist that those laws couldn't exist prior to the Big Bang, for example? Well, and therefore in a mind as well.
Okay, so you asked just a monster question right there. Yeah, here's the thing.
I'm a little nervous, so I'm kind of surprised it came out.
Here's the thing. Is there good reason to think that gravity operated pretty much the way it does now before there were any human minds to recognize this? Yes, because it's descriptive of how all bodies move, so the formation of planets and other things.
Right.
The question that you asked, though, is why is it so ridiculous to think that gravity existed before the Big Bang? Well, it may be because before the Big Bang is a nonsense question, because we talk about things in terms of local space-time, and we cannot get back to the Big Bang or before the Big Bang. We can't investigate beyond the Planck time, because that's when the math that we have to describe things breaks down. So we can't describe. Tom, wait. We cannot describe what there was or if there was anything before the Big Bang. But the second part of your question is not only why is it absurd to think that gravity existed before the Big Bang, and the answer to that is because gravity is a description of our local space-time and does not necessarily apply before that. That's why it's absurd to claim that it was existed before that. But you went a step further, which is why is it absurd to claim that it's part of a mind? Well, because we have absolutely no evidence for that, and it is beyond our capacity to investigate. It's like saying, hey, we people live in houses, so here's a house or something that looks like a house. It looks like a house from the outside. How do I know it's not just a solid block, that it's the densest matter, that it's, some kind of physical construct inside of that house that leads to an alternate dimension? How do I know these things? Well, you don't. But the time to believe that that house is completely solid is after you've investigated and demonstrated that the case. The time to believe that that house, when you open the door, leads you to an alternate dimension is after you've discovered and that. If the facts about our local spacetime are the product of a mind, then that needs to be demonstrated before there's justification to believe it.
I think there's a category error here, and that is, we have this mental model, the laws of physics or whatever, the laws of gravity or whatever, and it's not, the behavior isn't there because somebody thought it into existence, right? The behavior is there because that's the emergent property of matter, right? And this idea that, it needs to have a mind in order to create it is wrong, because we're just describing what we see. We're describing this behavior. We're not trying. There isn't any mechanism or any idea that it's caused into existence by somebody thinking it.
And see, I won't go that far. I won't say it's wrong. I'll say it hasn't been demonstrated to be the case.
Right.
And the time to believe it is after.
I appreciate you guys staying later. I guess, and you might want to blast me on this one, but it seems to me that there is a certain amount of faith on both sides here. I mean, I believe that God is.
Wait, what faith are we exercising?
Well, just a second. You don't believe that anything supernatural existed, right?
Because we have yet to see the evidence for it.
I do not believe. That is not the same as I believe the supernatural doesn't.
So you do not believe in...
I am not convinced that the supernatural is real. How is that an exercise of faith to not be convinced of something?
That's a good way of putting it. I'll figure it out.
Damn right.
Later.
We'll see you next time, Tom.